Today I'm checking out a really cool cassette tape effect that's free. This is Tape Cassette 2 from Caelum Audio, and here's the website for this. You can get this as a free download. There's a quick overview video. This is even available for iOS. So I saw this come up in the news and I really thought it looked interesting. Figured I'd give it a chance because it's free. And I'm glad I did because it's pretty great. Here it is on some drums. These are drums from Loop Cloud Play, the free virtual instrument. So I'm going to start it off with dry drums and I'm going to add this in. I really like what this does with hi-hats. So I'm going to turn the noise down, turn the flutter all the way up. Let's listen to this. So what this does is emulate a cassette tape and the effects that it would impart to your audio playing back from it. And you can saturate it, you can adjust the low pass filter, you can add in noise. There is wow and flutter, and the difference between wow and flutter. Wow is a kind of a slower pitch change, more like a sine wave shape. It's usually like either tape stretch or bad power supply, like the batteries are starting to get low and stuff like that. So it's a more gradual, slow pitch effect. And flutter is a very fast pitch effect. You're going to hear that on transients, like in those hi-hats. And it's very, very rapidly changing. Kind of a really interesting, strange distortion on certain sounds. Let's hear this on, here's a bass. This plugin also has an impulse response, which kind of instantly makes it sound lo-fi. It's a impulse response of a Type 1 cassette. And so if we put this on, instantly kind of band passes it in a nice way. Let's move on to a synth. This is a bass from Tal Uno LX. So yeah, as you can see, pretty simple to use, great sound, useful tool to have. It's awesome that it's free. This plugin has up to 16x oversampling and actually has no option to turn oversampling off completely. And what oversampling is, by the way, is it increases the sample rate of the plugin internally. The processing runs at a higher sampling rate, which then moves the Nyquist frequency, which is half of the sample rate, the maximum frequency that it can process, moves it up. You can filter it in a different way, less steep, and you're going to get less artifacts into the audible range. So I wanted to determine if 2x and 4x, if there was a big difference, and then from 4x to 8x or 16x, if there's any point in using those at all. I'm running at 48 kilohertz, what I found is that the 4x is the best option, and here's how I determined that. So I'm going to make a new track. I'm going to put in a MIDI item. I'm going to insert the tone generator on this item. I'm going to loop it, and I'm going to set this up to 19K. So you won't even hear this tone probably, but it's there. Okay, so I've inserted some meters after the plugin. So here's what it looks like with the plugin off. We just have this one spike at 19,000 hertz. And when I put the plugin on, you see it generates some weird stuff below. And that's kind of just, you know, the tape artifacts and things like that. Now let's try pushing the saturation up. So because we are at 48 kilohertz, the maximum frequency that we can produce is 22,000 hertz. All the frequencies above it bounce off of the limit and come back into the audible range. So now we've got basically a 1K tone here that's coming up whenever we have those ultrasonic frequencies. And you know, anything that you run through a plugin like this, any sort of distortion plugin is going to have some sort of artifacts that bounce off of the maximum frequency called fold back distortion, and it comes back into the audible range. When you run music through it, you may not notice it because there's so much else going on, but with pure tones, you can see this kind of stuff, and it definitely makes you think twice. So when I put this tone through, push the saturation by 12 dB, we're seeing multiple frequencies. So on the spectrogram, there's the top line, that's the loudest one, but then we've got one in the middle here, and one at 1K. We've got one at 19 kilohertz. We've got one at 9,300 or so, and another one at 1,200. And you can calculate these manually, but you know, the meter kind of shows that. There's also some noise when you actually move the knob, which you might want to be careful about automating that knob in that case. So now let's switch on the oversampling. It's at 2x. Let's switch it to 4x. And you can see that frequency in the middle just totally disappears. We have nothing here at 1K anymore. There's still something there at like 9,300, but you know, that's going to be much less audible. You can see from the intensity is way lower. If we crank this up, only then are we actually getting anything at 1K, and it's at 100 dB, minus 100 dB. So setting it to 4x is definitely a very effective strategy for removing noises like this. And then if we switch to 8 times, it does eliminate that one at 9,300. And then 16x actually, in this case, doesn't clean it up any higher. So I think for this plugin, the sweet spot, at least if you're recording at 48 kilohertz or processing stuff at 48 kilohertz, 4x oversampling is going to be the cleanest, least artifacty type of distortion. I was also interested in seeing what the impulse response does and the filter, and if the saturation actually affects the frequency response in more of a broadband manner. So I put on the white noise generator. I've got it at minus 20. Here's what it sounds like without the cassette plugin. And with. So it's a very subtle change, just having it on, not really doing anything. Let's turn the IR on, and we'll see this. So it really dramatically softens everything from about 1,300 up. Not that it sounds bad. It does exactly what you would kind of intend it to do. You want it to sound lo-fi. It's the lo-fi plugin. So let's do IR off, and we'll play with the saturation. I thought it was very interesting that between about 17 dB up to 24 dB on the input gain, or the saturation knob, it actually starts filtering out highs. Let's look at the effect of the wow and the flutter. It's a little hard to see, but you can see little like kind of fluttery bits there, like cuts in the waveform or in the frequency. Here's flutter. So I found all that stuff kind of interesting, pretty geeky, but you know, that's just who we are. They didn't ask me to check out this plugin or pay me or anything like that. I just happened to come across it. Looked interesting, tried it out. I like it, so we're doing a video on it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Support the Reaper blog through Patreon, and visit reaperblog.net for a lot more tutorials.